Welcome to the Manchester City panel. With us we have Oliver Frost, Roger Anna. Thank you everyone for your submitted questions. I will get right into them. So starting off with questions for all three, we'll start with Hans. How did you first find out what speed cubing was?
I went to the science museum and I saw prototypes and I was just like, and I played around with it a lot and got kind of fast at just a beginner's method. And I thought that there must be some sort of competition for this sort of thing, and yeah, that thought was kind of right. That's it, really.
How did you find out what speed cubing was?
At the time, my average was about 40 seconds, and I was wondering what the world record is. And I found out at the time it was 12 seconds, which was amazing to me. And eventually I learned about speed cubing, how to get faster, etc. And yeah.
So I got started when I saw a couple of people in my sixth form just trying to work it out together, and sounds bad, but I was thinking, well, if they can do it, so can I. And then, and I asked, this was like a month before Christmas, so I asked to get a Rubik's Cube for Christmas, and then sort of sibling rivalry kicked in when my brother said, I bet you can't learn to solve it in under 5 minutes. And then he said eventually to 1 minute. And by this point, I'd already been hooked, and I'd already seen some videos on YouTube of people solving in, I think at this time it was under 10 seconds easily. And blindfolded as well, that's what got me like really captivated. I saw a 31-second world record, and that's when I sort of realised speed cubing could be a really cool thing.
Excellent, thank you. And so the next question is for all of you. Hello. So this was asked by a few people as well. What is your favourite and least favourite event? Sorry.
My favourite event right now is probably one-handed, because I feel like we can get quite stressful these days. The one-handed, I feel the turning is nice and slow, so you can focus on being nice and efficient and come with aesthetically pleasing solutions. And my least favourite event is probably Megaminx, because it's just, I guess since I take about 5 minutes to solve it and my attention span is about half a minute, you can kind of realise what goes on from there.
My favourite event has to be 4x4 and 5x5, because they take roughly between 30 to a minute, and that's a decent amount of time for a solve, I think. It's not too short and it's not too long, so that's why I like it. My least favourite event has to be either big blind or multi, because you can't see your progress when you're doing a solve, and you might end up with a DNF, and you've just basically wasted your time.
Well, my least favourite events now is 4 and 5. Similar to Alex, actually, big blind stressful now, so it's knocked off my favourite event, and it's actually 2x2 is my new favourite event. Because it's quick and because it's a good thing to have in competition, it's just easy to organise and get it done. And I think my least favourite event now is got to be feats. Because, well, no explanation needed. Feet.
Okay, so hello, microphone, please on. Okay, so another question for all of you. To what extent do you think hardware has affected cubing?
Well, obviously hardware does affect cubing quite a lot, in the sense that you sort of need to be able to turn the cube and stuff. But as for the history of how it's affected cubing, I'm not entirely sure. Because I personally have used this cube, this Guhong, for a very, very long time. And I get presented with new cubes all the time, and I don't feel any difference really between them, to be honest. Maybe it's just me.
For me, when I started with a Rubik's store-board, and you had to use your wrist to do all the turning, and you can't really use your fingers to turn. And as years went by, better cubes got released, and weird finger tricks and better finger tricks got invented, and people eventually got faster. And I think it had a major impact on our solving style and perhaps methods as well. So I'm really glad that we have all these puzzles that we do have right now.
Yeah, I can't really add much more onto that, but now is an exciting time because I think the hardware is the best that it's ever been, and I think there have been a few recent records which just wouldn't have been possible without the new hardware. For example, Square One now has decent hardware, and it's probably partly the reason why Simon, for example, got a new ER. because Square Ones have been notoriously bad for a long time. And I think a few more 5x5 world records have been broken now with the new Yuxin. So now modern cubes are definitely the best, and it's quite an exciting thought to think like what the records will be now, or in a few months, years time.
Okay, so now we'll move on to some group-related questions for Alex. So, why Brew, why not other methods? Did you consider using other methods?
I did start off using CFOC for a very short amount of time. Well, getting up to about 23 seconds average or so. But I was very dissatisfied by the fact that I had to learn 80 something algorithms to be like, really fast, and I want to be really fast. And the reason why is because I felt that I was not solving intuitively, and I value intuition very much. So I was searching for more intuitive methods and came across Petrus. The trouble with Petrus is I realised that the orientation stage means that you use lots of moves basically. But I came across Brew, and I was like, that looks really cool. Because the M slices are really cool to see. That's why I use Brew, I guess.
Do you feel like you helped the progression of Brew as well, the speed solving method?
Sure, I mean, I think Waffle and who else? Austin Moore to an extent were the other fast ones at Brew. And I sort of carried on what they were doing, in a sense. And Tom Ballard as well. Yeah, I guess sort of getting the European record and being European champion really sort of made Brew very popular. I mean, like, I think a lot of you over here use Brew now, whilst I think sort of last year I was probably the only one at some competition to use Brew.
And final Brew question, do you think the Brew method has potential to overtake the likes of CFOP in terms of popularity?
I think it certainly has potential, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay, so now we'll move on to some questions for Rob. So, is there anything you did specifically in order to become fast at so many events? And was there any particular reason you chose to become an all-rounder?
In a competition in 2009, I noticed there are some people who are really good at everything, and I just thought, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And eventually I tried to become fast at most events that I liked. Sometimes I watch world record videos, and that inspires me to try and copy the way they turn and the methods that they use. But I'm still not into big blind and multi yet.
Okay, then whilst you do so many events, how do you balance the practice throughout all of them? How do you balance the practice throughout the many events? Is there any event you practice a lot more than others?
I don't do any of this balancing stuff. I just practice what I feel like, really.
Okay, and
What are your thoughts?
what are your thoughts on the Euler method?
It's a decent method, but I think at the moment there's only one guy who's decent at the method, and because his English isn't that great, it's hard for him to tell others like how to become faster. So there's a trouble in helping others become fast with that method.
Okay, and if you didn't invent Yao, do you think it would have come up naturally with somebody else who invented it or something similar?
I think so, because someone, Eric Ackersteig, the former world record holder for freeway 3, he had a similar idea, and I took that idea and I basically gave it more structure, and I made this, and I made the Yao method, as we call it now. And I think someone else could have taken that and had the same idea and found the same method.
Okay, excellent. Okay, now moving on to Ollie. So some blindfolded related questions. What is your top tip for somebody who is looking to get into blindfolding?
So I guess to start blindfolding, just to learn how to do the, just to solve with the blindfolded method, I would start simple. I'd start for corners, for example. Definitely use old Potman method. It's something which I think is pretty universal, and it's very, very quick to learn, and it's very, very simple to explain. And there's plenty of good YouTube tutorials out there already that explain old Potman. And I know a few people who have gotten to under a sub-minute still using it, so it's not like it's a beginner's method, it's still a very, very good method. And for edges is equally, it's got a nice low barrier to entry with M2, which is quite a nice edge method, which is again easy to explain and I believe fairly easy to understand. Again, lots of YouTube tutorials already out there. It's just to, like, the big thing is kind of being scared of it. Like, people kind of think it's something that they can't do, and when they don't understand it straight away, they sort of get disheartened. But you just have to be patient with it, and so the reward is definitely worth the extra patience you put in to learning it.
Another one, how do you handle blind sessions? Do you often remember memo of previous cues?
I used to have to take lots of breaks. As I got a bit faster though, tended to use different memory methods which didn't rely on visualizing things so much, so a lot more audio sounds, for example, where you just kind of make sounds from the letter pairs, because in the brain they last a lot less time. So as I got faster and with Big Blind as well, I used to just focus more on audio so that I could do maybe 4, 5, 6 blind solves in a row and not get tired. Like, it's finding just as good.
And lastly, what do you think the limits for blindness are? Are we getting close?
Not in competition, no. I reckon, like, if I had to predict, I reckon we'll see 130 in 4 blind in the next 2-3 years. And I think Big Blind could easily go into 4 minutes, but beyond that, I don't really know, to be fair. It's becoming a bit less popular, I think, but we'll see.
Okay. So, Alex, are you planning on getting your European average back? Do you think you'll improve much within the next year or so?
I'm not planning on getting it back because I'm not practicing as much as I used to. But I see it as a possibility where I need to be encouraged to practice more, maybe. But yeah, I mean, since the European record average is something like 7.1 now, or something like 3, the next average has got to be 7 or something. And even for me, that's quite difficult to reach, I think.
And you mentioned earlier you used a Google when modern cubes have arguably far better hand slices and control. Do you ever think you'll switch to a new cube?
I haven't felt a cube which has better hand slices actually. Wait, who asked that question?
It is an anonymous.
Wise. Yeah. Cool. If someone presents me with a better cue, sure, I'll use it. That's great.
Okay, also Lord for question. Did you have any ideas for the name? Was it you who popularized Yao?
It wasn't me at first, it was someone called Michael Gottlieb. Because we just needed to name it something, and eventually it just stuck. That's why we called it after me, basically.
Who do you think popularized Yao?
Were you the main?
Hello?
Were you the? Come on.
Were you the main popularizer of the method, or do you think others contributed as well?
It was definitely not me, because I didn't switch to this method until 3 years later when Felix Sendek switched to the method. In the World Championships 2009, Dan Cohen broke the world record single with a single of 36, I think it was. And I think people were inspired by him. For example, Sebastian Bayer, who went on to break the single average world record, and today he still holds the 4x4 average world record.
Okay, moving on to Ollie. So, you studied neuroscience at university. Do you think blind solving got you into that, or did neuroscience help you get into blind solving?
Yes, so there's a big module on memory and how human memory works, and it turns out the brain is good at some things and it's really, 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 really bad at other forms of memorization. So for example, the brain holds onto images a lot better, and when you hear people using the journey method, the reason they think is because back when we were sort of hunter-gatherers, people needed to remember the route to get back to the sort of home base from when they were out hunting. So we use that, we use the journey method because it's sort of like a hardwired thing. So neuroscience definitely helped for developing my blindfolded method and getting the right balance of images and audio. But yeah, I'd say definitely an influence from neuroscience.
Okay, and what did it feel like when you broke your first world record?
It's a long time. Well, I was obviously delighted because I think it was by 0.15 of a second, and when I did the solve itself, it just felt all right. So it was a massive surprise to see just the right decimal on the timer in front of me. I think if anyone actually remembers this, I think I actually ran around a bit and just. I think I hugged you. I definitely hugged you and Daniel. Yeah, it was great. Obviously.
Excellent, okay. So we've got a little bit of time left, so we're going to take some questions from the floor. So, is there anyone who has any very sensible question? Would you like to pick something, Daniel?
Do you recommend the cage method on the 4x4?
Rob?
No, because it requires so many moves, and doing inner slice moves is too time consuming. I don't see it having any potential really.
In getting from, regular person speed to really fast, could you tell us a bit about the plateaus that you reached and what you did to break through those sticking points, please?
It's funny because I never actually reached any, and I think that's because I always practice sort of with a lot of thought. That is, like, a lot of people tend to just practice without thinking about what they're doing, and then you tend to develop bad habits. But I was really attentive to what bad habits I was developing. And I think evidence towards this theory is that about a year ago I stopped practicing with a lot of care. I just started to practice on and off whenever I felt like it. And now I have lots of bad habits, as you can see in my solving. So I think, yeah, to avoid plateaus, one has to just see what his bad habits are and don't encourage them.
Any more questions?
I plateaued when I was around 20 seconds, I think. At that time, I was thinking I would never get below, say, 15 or 18, because I just can't see myself turning that much faster. But eventually, I learned more algorithms, and I learned full OLL and PLL, and hardware got better, and that allowed me to turn a bit faster, and allowed me to eventually reach sub 15 and go on to sub 10, etc.
I plateaued a few times as well. The way I sort of got over that was to try and identify and really focus on what my weak points of all of my solves were. So for example, with my memorization, is it slow? Am I forgetting things? Or when it comes to execution, am I just mixing things up? Am I turning quickly? Am I turning with the right style? It's just asking constantly all of these questions to yourself, because there's always going to be something which you can improve on. When you hit a plateau, I think you've probably got a few bad habits, and you've probably become comfortable with the solving style you've got. But you've always got to be like open to trying new things and opening your mind up to learning new algs, and just keep an eye on your progress, really.
How long have you been using RuNet for?
I've been using the room method since 2011, so that probably means about 4 years or so.
Any more questions? Ciao.
Which stream model do you have and how long have you been using it? Is it longer?
I think Chris Dixon gave it to me in about 2012 actually, so I've been using it for about 3 years.
Another question?
What's your opinion on the original Rubik's branch?
It's really fun to use actually, because I mean you can sort of show off to people if you can solve it kind of fast.
Well, I used to use one, and the stickers came off quite easily, and I would just make my own stickers and use sellotape to stick them on. And at the time it meant a lot, because I devoted a lot of time to trying to make that cube good, and I can still get 15 or sub 12 seconds with that cube.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it used to be. There's a new Speed Cube version, which if you haven't tried it already, definitely do, because it's surprisingly fast. I've got one in the office, and yeah, I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as it used to be. And my very first cube was a Rubik's brand, so it's not like I hate them. It's not like I'd use one in a competition, but yeah.
What do each of you think is going to be the hardest world record to break? Not for you individually, just in general.
I think the 2x3 world record is probably the hardest to break. Felix probably wouldn't think it's that hard to break, but everyone else definitely. Because that's insanely fast, really. And it's also most popular then, and by virtue of that, I guess lots and lots of people have practiced it, and we might be quite near the limit.
I think the hardest world record to break is perhaps the one-handed world record, which is 6.8 seconds, I think. And if you double that, it's 13.4, no, sorry, 13.6. Which is still a very good time for for a fast cube. I would be happy with that time. And yeah, I can't see anyone getting close to 6 seconds.
Mine's a toss-up between the current FMC single, it's at 19 now if you didn't know, which is, it's incredible I think, and it depends a lot on luck and having a lot of patience to find that sort of solution, and I don't think it's going to come up very often. so it might be a few years before that's broken. But then my other record I think isn't going to be broken for years is Mascow's multi-blind 41 out of 41. Like, he worked incredibly hard for that, and I don't think anyone's even come close to like contesting him in the last 2-3 years now. He's going to be up there for at least 4 or 5 years, I think.
Do you guys ever see Steve Cumming being seen in the sport?
Tyler has asked, do you see in the future whether speed cubing will become sort of a more mainstream sport?
I can kind of see that happening, but I don't really want that to happen because I kind of like the way things are right now and don't want things like money to be involved. I don't want people to be, for example, motivated by the money itself. They should just like the sport itself and the competitions.
Can't be that. I think it's going to become a lot more popular because just going on this competition, for example, I think the biggest one we had was about 90, so 100? It was 120. And we have 160, so just imagine the curve. It's going to be in a few years, definitely a couple of hundred people. As recognised as an official sport, I probably don't think so. I mean, you can definitely argue for it in the same sort of sense that chess is recognised as a sport officially, but I don't think it will be realistically.
How is chess?
I guess the big difference between chess and cubing is that chess is a sort of a game which you play against someone else whilst indirectly. And I think the point system is based on that, something like that. Whilst cubing, I guess you get this problem where the great majority of people have almost sort of no chance of getting the world record or something. But yeah, like Rob, I don't really want it to turn into a sport either, because obviously I can go on a big rant about materialism and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but we ain't got no time for that.
And on that note, what an excellent way to finish. So, thank you everyone for your questions. I hope you've learned a lot, and let's have a round of applause for our panelists.